All right, hey, welcome back to my channel, fellow Patriots. Let's just go ahead and jump into it. It's going to be a good video, right? So November 5th finally came, and despite the reported irregularities that we covered in our prior video, Donald Trump emerged victorious as the 47th president of the United States, defeating the placed puppet Kamala Harris. Thankfully, the victory was so decisive, and apparently it was too big to be rigged, which is what we were hoping for, right? And I think a large part of that was due to Lara Trump, co-chair of the RNC. I think she anticipated a lot of these irregularities based on 2020, and she made sure that she was ready to, counteract any of these situations that came up. Like we showed in our prior video, we did give an example of that. So kudos to her. Donald Trump's victory was, in my opinion, secured by, her ability, right? The prior chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, did a horrible job on many levels, but that's another matter. Now, the media's reaction has been expected, and the left's reaction has been your typical display of mental illness on steroids, to be quite honest with you. So let's go ahead and take a look. The first area I want to talk about is the victory, right? From the very beginning, Trump took an immediate electoral lead, which he would not relinquish for the entire night. At around 10 or 11 p.m., thanks to California, Kamala Harris managed to close the gap and pull within 16 points, according to Fox News coverage, right? We were watching Fox. At around 2 a.m., multiple news outlets projected Donald Trump as the next president as he crossed the 270 electoral college votes, right? Landing him at 277. Now, currently today, November the 8th, Trump sits at 295, and there's still two states that are still pending to be called, and that would be Arizona and Nevada. Now, should he win those two, that would put him at about 312 electoral votes, making it the highest of his three campaigns. Now, when we look at this decisive victory, and we compare it to 2020, 2016, and even prior elections, something very, very unusual stands out. Democratic voting seems relatively flat between Obama, Hillary Clinton, and now Kamala Harris. But it had an unusual spike for Biden, right? The guy who was running for U.S. Senator, right, during 2020, right? That's what he said. I think, the image that we're looking at now provides real good evidence that there was some, funny business that took place in 2020. Now, to be honest, the media has been so off the mark, right? I started my last video a little bit concerned, right? Because they were showing how far ahead she was. The polls tightened and they were relatively tied at one point, and so on and so forth. So they had me worried. But in the end, Donald Trump's victory was so big, they couldn't do another 2020 because she managed to actually underperform in every measurable category possible. Let's take a look.
So you asked, are there any places that the vice president is overperforming Joe Biden in 2020? So we could show you that as well. We just bring that out here. Harris overperforming in 2020.
Holy smokes.
There you go. So let this go away and see if there's anything on the east side there.
Literally nothing?
Literally nothing.
Literally not one county?
Holy cow, you guys lied to your audience. Yeah, no duh. Now, the only reason she even got to 226, which is where she's currently at now, is predominantly due to, the leftist media propping her up just so that she can beat Trump. And thankfully their plans failed, right? So, and naturally, they're going to melt down, right? So we flipped over to MSNBC that night to see how they were reacting to the news. So after the Daily Wire, Newsmax, and Fox had all made their calls, MSNBC still had Trump in the low 200s, and she was in the mid 100s. So now listening to the panel trying to explain the lead was pretty laughable as they continued to fearmonger their audience. After it was clear that she was not going to win, the media began to break down. So let's take a look at some of their reactions from that night afterwards.
There are African-American women who know a little bit about being talked down to and know a little bit about having their economic dreams crushed, who tried to dream a big dream over the past couple of months. And tonight they're trading in a lot of hope for a lot of hurt.
Aww.
And they were hoping that maybe this time, one of their own could be seen as worthy. And once again, they were facing rejection. And that hurts. They thought tomorrow morning they're going to walk out with their shoulders back a little bit, maybe able to breathe for the first time and feel like they belong someplace. They did everything that they knew how to do. And it's going to be harder than it should be tomorrow for them to hold their heads up. And they're not the only people who are hurting.
Would you like to try to hold back tears as well, Chunk Uger?
So right now, as things stand, I just came off the Young Turks show where I lit into the Democratic Party.
You're so tough. You're so brave, sir.
Bunch of losers, corporate Democrats. I hate them. They've cost us election after election. They're corrupt.
See, he doesn't think that they're left enough.
And they lost, it looks like, to a syphilitic clown. Total moron.
He's breaking down into tears.
Con man, Donald Trump. So, if you lose to a buffoon like Donald Trump twice, what does that make you?
This says more about who we are as a country and this moment, that this overqualified African-American mixed-race woman did not win this race. And she lost it to a man who is a felon.
From trumped-up charges, no pun intended.
Who tried to overturn the will of voters in a free or fair election. You talked about the House.
What was it, 6 hours ago, I was mystified by what was going on. And now I can't help but think that if this election seems to be, if it proves out that the millions of people who are watching Fox News, if that ends up being the case, then...
If Kamala loses, you mean? Yeah, she did.
I can't help but wonder if the American people have given up on democracy.
Now, in addition to all that melting down, Hollywood is also having a meltdown. Let's take a look at that.
Hey there. How are you doing? If you watch the show regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great. Yeah, me neither.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate. It was a terrible night for poor people, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO. And guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet.
Said he would be a dictator on day one. The question now is, what will the rest of us be doing on day one? Right? Now's the time to stand in solidarity with our friends, with our neighbors.
Well, it happened again. And in this democracy, the majority has spoken, and they said they don't care that much about democracy. The first time Donald Trump was elected, he started as a joke and ended as a tragedy. This time he starts as a tragedy. Who knows what he'll end as?
You know, these people just can't help themselves with the fear-mongering. The dictator comment, right? He said he was going to be a dictator on day one regarding two subject matters. The border, he's going to shut it down no matter what. And then drill, baby, drill. He was going to make sure he unleashed the energy juggernaut that is the United States to boost up our economy. I mean, these people are absolutely insane. And you know, seeing crying Jimmy Kimmel is one of the most pathetic things I've ever seen this year. To think he started a show called The Man Show back during his time with the NFL, to seeing him turn into like this pathetic soy boy is just weird. And naturally, when someone loses something, especially on a professional level, analyzing the loss is the normal course of action. However, as an immediate reaction, we tend to first shift blame on someone else versus looking in the mirror. This loss is no different. The left is blaming everything. They're blaming the vice president's Kamala Harris's vice president choice. They're blaming white women. They're blaming Hispanics. They're blaming blacks for being misogynistic. They're blaming people for being racist in general. They're blaming everything except Kamala Harris, accept the fact that the Democratic Party did all these shenanigans to place her there, someone who was unlikable and had low poll ratings, and ran a terrible campaign. No, but they want to gaslight you and tell you she ran a flawless campaign. Let's take a look at some of the blame game that's going on.
Let's be honest about this, okay? Let's be absolutely blunt about it.
That Kamala was a diversity hire and not qualified for any position whatsoever other than maybe working at Starbucks?
There were appeals to racism in this campaign, and there is racial bias in this country, and there is sexism in this country, and anybody who thinks that that did not in any way impact on the outcome of this race is wrong.
And just like in 2016, before they came up with the Russia hoax, and Russians spreading fake news on social media, which duped people into not liking Hillary, of course, they were saying that it was just sexism. And so since they're always a broken record, they are rehashing that talking point.
I just say, Rev, really quickly, too. Democrats need to be mature, and they need to be honest.
That they're disinformation agents and that they sunk so low that they sounded like a schizophrenic homeless person ranting about the end of the world, even though they're billion-dollar brand name outlets.
And they need to say, yes, there's misogyny. But it's not just misogyny from white men. It's misogyny from Hispanic men.
Right.
It's misogyny from black men. Things we've all been talking about, who do not want a woman leading them. Might be race issues with Hispanics. They don't want a black woman as president of the United States. You know,
I'm surprised at the result, but I'm not surprised. As a woman of color, I was so hopeful that a mixed race woman married to a Jewish guy could be elected president of this country.
Notice her racist in-group preferences, not Kamala's policies, which were garbage, not her qualifications, which were none, only because of her race and her gender, a typical DEI hire.
And I think that it had nothing to do with policy. I think this was a referendum of cultural resentment in this country. Why do you think that uneducated white women voted against their reproductive health freedoms? And why do you think Latino men voted in favor of someone that's going to deport, says he's going to deport the majority of his community?
White women like being called uneducated white women. I think the economy matters, national security matters. But when you put people in these boxes, I think that's a takeaway from this race.
We have to look at the demographics.
White women are to blame. Hispanic men and black men are misogynistic. Specifically, Hispanic men are racist because we don't want to vote for somebody who's black. What else? Women who support Trump are dumb. I mean, they went down the list, and at no point was there any self-reflection, or there hasn't been, at least none that I've come across. So it's pretty fascinating. They just don't realize a multitude of different things.
And I will dare to say that is the Latino man who wouldn't want a woman president. I mean, you and I had this discussion before, and I have audios from the Latino men who were calling my show telling me that they wouldn't vote for her just because she was a woman. And that is unfortunately, but that's part of the Latino culture, right? Where the Latino, the man is the one, the provider, and we're the boss, and we still unfortunately have a lot of Latinos with that mentality where the woman belongs in the kitchen. That is a reality of the Latino male chauvinist culture, and I think that's exactly what happened.
Martinez has no idea what he's talking about. Some inconvenient facts for him. For instance, the fact that in 2016, Hillary Clinton won Latino men by a 31-point margin.
Game over already, but wait till you see more.
And if you think it's mainly because of racism, that also doesn't quite jive with the fact that Latinos voted for Barack Obama over Mitt Romney, 71% to Romney's 27%. What are we doing, Democrats? Like, what do you... They're gone, Cenk. They're gone. Like, unable, unwilling to ever do even a little bit of self-reflection.
She just was not a likable character. The Democrats didn't want her. Remember, Democrats didn't want her back in 2020. And they blamed it on racism back then. She actually did it. She actually blamed it on racism back then. Well, that's your own party that didn't pick you. So if you're acknowledging your party is racist, I would agree. And we can see that based on the videos that we just played. Democrats never had a choice to select anyone outside of Joe Biden. And then, after being lied to about his mental capacity, which was finally exposed and became undeniable during the debate against Trump, they removed him and placed her, entirely circumventing the basis of the democracy they claim to be defenders of.
Was democracy best served by President Biden stepping down and basically handing you a nomination? You didn't have to go through a primary process. You didn't have to fight off other contenders. That's not really the way our system was intended to work.
This man, somewhere deep down in his soul, still has the remnants of an actual journalist, even though he is working for CBS. You got to give this guy credit.
President Biden made a decision that I think history is going to show is rare among leaders.
To step down just a few months before a presidential election. Yeah, that's definitely rare. I'll show you a couple more clips because these were actually real questions and this guy wasn't taking any of her BS.
So in addition to the few things I just mentioned, the media fails to realize its own influence in this loss. They have zero self-reflection in the lies that they spew to help the Democrats and have proven time and time again they are not journalists due to their bias. Rather, they have become an extension of the Democratic Party spewing propaganda. Now, the left's insanity, let's talk about that. The level of manipulation from the leftist media is astonishing. I think any tyrant or actual dictator would be both proud and amazed at what these people have been able to achieve. People have taken to their social media platforms to essentially display their mental breakdown from the brainwashing. Let's just take a small sample because it's just so much.
I'm sorry. No. Why?
How did we get here? How did we get here? What in the Alice in Wonderland nightmares is going on right now?
Senate race. It's not going to happen. Go, Kamala. Will be returning to the Senate.
I chose family. I chose women. I chose America. I love you. How the fuck is this still happening? All I've ever known politically is hatred.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with you. I'm done with you and your mother and your sister. I'm just done with all of this.
I'm sorry to all my friends who are Trump supporters. But y'all don't understand how scared of this man I am. Fuck you. I don't want to hear about how your life gets under his policies. None of us are stressed about the election, right? We all are gonna just go have the best night's sleep of our lives, aren't we? We don't have to freak out because it's not even real. Because recount the vote. Yo, I'm scared to go to sleep. I might wake up a motherfucking slave.
This is all prank, right? Like we're just gonna wake up tomorrow morning and everything's gonna go back to the way it'll be a psych. It'll be like a really bad dream, and none of this will have ever happened.
They're crying into their phone and then posting it on the internet for the entire world to see.
Right? Like it'll be like the first time, and then we're all gonna pull through fine in 4 years.
But wait, there's more.
Correct? Please? Someone tell me? I can tell you one thing right now, marriage is the farthest thing from on the table currently. So they screwed the pooch on that one if they thought that any of this was going to actually help with the whole family and kids department and lowering birth rates, because not even any semblance of thoughts I had or hope for that is completely going to be a no thanks for me, love. You think I would ever even dare bring a child into this country now? It was rough before. Now? No.
Well, some lucky guy out there dodged a bullet on this one. Thank you, Donald Trump.
Did you guys notice the men in those videos? Now, the media has done such a good job at brainwashing people with propaganda that many people believe that Trump's going to take away all their rights. And it's, you know, you can't, it's hard to like combat that based on what these people put out. I mean, just look at, here's AOC doing her propaganda.
Speaking of Latinos, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did an Instagram live stream sounding like a lunatic, warning that we're now under fascism.
We are about to enter a political period that will have consequences for the rest of our lives. We cannot give up. We now find ourselves in a time in history that has precedent, and we find ourselves
spewing word salads without actually getting to the point. Come on, honey.
I believe in a time where there are, let's say, peers in history of mass movements of people that mobilize to protect one another in times of fascism and authoritarianism. And this is the era that we are poised to enter.
Now, some of you guys might say, well, you know, the right has been worried and saying pretty much the same thing, right? That they're fascist and communist and socialist and so on and so forth. Yes, but we actually have examples and concerns, right? Harris talked about a gun buyback, right?
Specifically, assault weapons. What would you do about the millions of, specifically, assault weapons that are already in circulation? What do you do about those?
Well, there are approximately 5 million, to your point, Craig. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program. It's got to be smart. We got to do it the right way.
The left has been finding new ways to limit our Second Amendment rights under the disguise of gun control, right? Censorship of speech, when it goes against their craziness, is considered hate speech, and according to them, should be controlled. I mean, you know, the running mate, Harris's running mate, Waltz, had said that in an interview where it should be limited. Your speech should be limited.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
If you say something as simple as males are males and females are females, my gosh, they call that hate speech, and they will censor you for it. They'll deplatform you for it. They'll get you fired. They'll destroy your entire livelihood. You know, their calls for censorship were put on high adrenaline the night that Trump won into the days after, even till today. Let's take a look.
Which is why one of the talking points that they're going to be repeating from now until eternity is that they need to regulate social media, because thankfully Elon Musk bought Twitter and loosened the rules, allowing freer speech on the platform, which really set them off.
I think this is a big, huge part of the story that it's hard to even digest fully at this moment. But you have Elon Musk, who owns Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days, X, who is a disinformation propagandist and now has could potentially have a direct line to the Oval Office.
You mean the Democrat Party wasn't able to control Twitter this election like they did in 2020, blocking the Hunter Biden laptop story and then suspending major media outlets like the New York Post for reporting on it?
Well, it would help if we could regulate social media, because one of the biggest offenders is D.C. and Congress have not been able to do one thing in regard to the rogue corporations of social media.
Rogue corporations, meaning Elon Musk buying Twitter and thankfully loosening the rules.
We have now let misinformation become the accepted information.
Well, that's why I'm here, trying to stop you.
It has washed over us. Elon Musk, he buys Twitter, and then he uses it almost exclusively to be a propaganda machine, and we've accepted it. We've accepted a narrative that despite an actually great economic recovery, the vibes don't feel good.
Oh, just the vibes of millennials and Zoomers not being able to own homes, rent skyrocketing, the cost of groceries and gas and everything else just through the roof. The trusted mainstream media has been telling us that the economy's great. I mean, what are you going to believe, them or your lying eyes? It must have been because Elon Musk bought Twitter.
And the person we are now betting on to change all of it is Donald Trump, a man who did two almost impossible things.
He survived the countless lawfare attacks you've been waging against him, and we were able to override Operation Mockingbird and convince the majority of Americans to vote him in. Ha ha ha! Too bad!
So going back to the left, they are sold on the narrative that Trump will take away their right to abort and kill their own babies. You know, this is just unbelievably sad that we have people, especially women, champion to kill babies in the womb. I mean, how morally low have we gotten that we've dehumanized babies and lowered the natural maternal instincts of women, that they would be proud, that they would be proud to advocate for, you know, this horror. Now, over the past few days, I've come across multiple people, this one's funny, saying Latinos voted to have themselves deported. An unbelievably ignorant and arguably racist comment being spewed by the left. First off, I'm a first-generation American whose parents migrated here legally, so I'm not getting deported. No Hispanic that migrated here legally is getting deported. If you broke the law to come here, then you came here illegally. Yes, you run the risk of getting deported because you are not here legally. You did not go through the actual process of being here. So you broke federal law to come here, sidestepping the legal process. I don't know what the disconnect is with the left between legal and illegal immigration. Like, are they really stupid? You know, it just boggles my mind. Now, final thoughts. The media's power is astonishing. I like I said before, I think dictators of old would marvel at what the leftist media's practices, and gets away with. Now, due to their lack of self-reflection, I'm confident they'll continue to spew lies about our president, continuing their portrayal of him as a dictator and continuing to add to the divide in this country. I've already seen governors and DAs come out vowing to do whatever they can to prevent Trump from deporting illegals. They're going to defy what's about to come, right? People that broke the law to come here, that shouldn't be here, they're going to defy Trump's mass deportation plan because they are sanctuary cities or sanctuary states, et cetera, et cetera. I don't understand that. And let's just hear one of them. I think this is the governor of Illinois, as he openly defies what's going to come.
Now, the governor says Illinois will remain a sanctuary state and would sue the federal government if Trump tried to retaliate by withholding federal public safety funds. He also says he believes agencies that decide on funding for things like infrastructure will continue to operate independently no matter who the president is, and that the federal spigot will not run dry.
Now, I heard an interview from Massachusetts governor, and it's interesting, her choice of words. She said that she will do everything she can to protect her citizens and her residents. That's a very interesting choice of words. I'm shocked. I'm shocked, and that these people are going to defy and harbor illegals, right? And then in that video, she claims that she's going to do everything that she can to defend the rule of law.
You know, every tool in the toolbox has got to be used to protect our citizens, to protect our residents, and protect our states, and certainly to hold the line on democracy and the rule of law as a basic principle, right? The other thing, though, Lawrence...
You're defending people that broke the rule of law. I mean, what twilight zone do we live in with these people? I don't really understand. But let that sink in for a moment. They're willing to defy and go against our actual rules of laws to help people who broke it. Again, the left freaks out when Trump says the enemy within, but it's clear that if the media is lying or telling only a partial truth, they're not being honest. Their continued support for the Democratic Party shows they are biased and should not call themselves journalists, because journalists are supposed to be unbiased. I always think about how much more President Trump could have achieved and accomplished in his first 4 years if it were not for the constant interference by the left. I expect that from a political party, even though it shouldn't, because you're putting your party ahead of your country. You should do everything that you can to improve your country versus trying to run interference just because you don't like the opposition party or the opposition candidate or the opposition president. It just doesn't make sense to me. But that means you like your spot, your position, your party more than you love your country. And that's a big, huge issue. Now, make no mistake, they will keep this playbook going because they know the long game. They love to play the long game. Doesn't matter what Republican comes after Trump, they have now set the new norm for journalism. Going forward, that's going to be the new norm. They're going to call everybody, they're going to attach every future Republican to Trump. And they're going to say, oh, you see, he likes Hitler. Oh, this and that. They're going to manage to make that connection in order to vilify that candidate and continue to vilify us. I'm so thankful Trump won, and I'm looking forward to him putting in place policies that will begin to eliminate traitors from our country, strengthen our economy, strengthen our borders, and hopefully do as much as he can to make sure that our elections are fair and free from fraud, because rest assured, they will continue to look for ways to circumvent the system, manipulate the laws so that they can come out on top. They're not about trying to convince their constituents why they should vote for them. They're trying to, number one, bring in a whole new constituency base, right? And on top of that, they're circumventing so many laws to try and retain power. And anybody with half a brain who's not brainwashed can absolutely see it. So, guys, that's it for my video today. Thank you so much for joining me. God bless America. God bless Trump. I mean, I feel like we're in a new era now that we've got Trump, we've got the Senate back, and it looks like we're going to maintain the House. So if we have all three of those, even though it's, you know, we still need help from the other aisle, but I'm hoping that we can achieve a lot in these next 4 years. And the fact that Trump doesn't have to play politics again like he did in his first term, we should be able to get a lot done. So I am so looking forward to it. Guys, thank you once again. I will see you guys. God bless you guys. God bless America. Till next time. Bye-bye.